Hi.
Howdy. Well, that was interesting.
This is one of the most surreal theater experiences I've ever been in my entire life. I'm not really even talking about the movie at this point. So we went to go see the latest KC masterpiece, Kirk.
Not the barbecue sauce, just the Kirk Cameron for everybody.
Kirk Cameron's Revive Us, which is a Fathom event. Not necessarily a movie like Saving Christmas, which was a movie in the loosest of terms, or Mercy Rule or any of his others. This was more like a live
sermon.
Yeah, a live sermon out of Chicago. So we when we walk into the theater and we turn that corner, and it was like walking into a retirement home rec center. There was just kind of a row of like walkers in wheelchairs. There was a lot of really elderly couples sprinkled throughout the audience. Like half of them were asleep. A couple of times that I went up to go use the restroom, I almost tripped. Like a couple of the people sitting next to us, a couple of them I think were asleep, and the one lady we were talking to after the movie had like it wasn't a cot, it was like a big lawn chair. It was like a big stretch lawn chair that was in the front row, and I came this close to just falling on my ass over that when I was walking to the restroom.
That would have been bad.
No, like that would have been slapstick.
Yeah, because I mean, it was one of those things where you could tell that a traditional theater seat would probably not have been good for her.
Oh, really? I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
I think that was for her comfort more than anything else. Because I think because she was stretched full out on it for most of the.
I didn't know if it was like for some kind of other than like that chair did look really comfortable.
Well, I think most people don't just because they brought their chair in, so because they were in front too, where she could stretch out by where like you'd allow like wheelchair stuff, wheelchair accessible, handicap accessible. So I think that had something to do with it. It wasn't just a matter of, I'm going to bring my chair because, why not?
I have seen that before.
Have you really?
Yeah, that happened at Grindhouse.
That was definitely not the case here. It was,
okay.
It was definitely for her comfort, because I'm sure the regular seats were not.
Well,
it didn't work well for her.
If I had tripped over that, maybe the audience would have applauded again.
Oh my god.
There was a lot of applause in this. After like every speaker there was applause, there was a lot of chanting, there was a lot of standing up and singing. It felt like if I was at the Oogie Loves with a packed audience, and they were totally into it. Actually, this felt like being in like the elderly white version of like a When the Bow Breaks audience, or a Tyler Perry audience. There was a lot of shouting amen at the screen. There was a lot of talking during the movie. It was I had a better time at this than I did at Hillary's America.
Oh yeah, this was not terrible. That's the thing. It wasn't a terrible experience. I'll give it that. It was definitely. I kind of took pause at the hush-hush political leanings. They never really came out and said a specific candidate to vote for, but you could tell by their leanings when you bring in Dr. Ben Carson, and when you talk about faith and Christianity and how one candidate does not believe in faith and Christianity, the other candidate does.
I get
they're leaning towards Trump.
Well,
I think, I mean, I don't think they could really come out and endorse it because because this is funded by a political group. I don't know what the rules are as far as non-for-profit. I don't know. Somebody will probably comment on it as far as where they can go with their endorsements.
They tell you to get out there, and they tell you to get out and vote, and they tell you to vote with your Christianity, and they say, like, how many more... They say in the last 3 elections, if every Christian in the country voted, it would have been, like, 20 million more than actually did vote, or something like that.
Which, when they say there are 90 million Christians in the United States, which I feel is a low number.
I don't know.
What... I mean, Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States. There are 300, well, I guess it is about a third, because there's about 325 million people in the United States. So discounting children, it's probably about right. But, so 90 million Christians. So they said 25 million didn't vote, but yet that means 65 million did. Who's to say that those other 25 million would have voted the way that this group wanted them to vote? Because clearly 65 million did vote, and the election went that way. I don't think it would be as cut and dry as our guy would have got in if these people would have voted. I think there would have been more split, and I don't think it would have changed the election.
What it said to me in this film about them not really coming out and endorsing one person over another, to me was more about a reflection on Trump. Because Donald Trump is a lot of things. A man of God is not one of them. Part of me thought that, like, if it was somebody else, if it was maybe anyone else who was running in that primary, or hell, even if this was like 2012, like, maybe they would have really got behind a particular candidate. I don't know. That's just a guess. But I mean, this movie though does do things like using the term "Make America Great Again."
Yeah,
it does do things like that. But part of me also wonders, like, if they like a lot of that stuff at the convention where there were speakers there, but there was some of them that did not come out and even say Trump's name, or hell, even like endorse him necessarily.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where I think a lot of people are starting to realize, dear God, what did we do? Mm-hmm. But their leanings don't allow them then to vote Democrat.
Uh-huh.
They have an aversion to voting Democrat, so they're not going to outright say it, but they're hell-bent on voting for Republican regardless of who it is.
Even if it's this 70-year-old man baby.
And I don't know. I think as a person of faith, I guess they're looking at it as, well, he's done these things. He's got sin, but we're all with sin, so... You know what I mean? I see it in there trying to reason, voting for this man.
Bending over backwards to vote for this predator.
I know. I don't agree with it.
No,
I don't at all.
No, but I get that, like, okay, let's take this particular political scandal out of it and just kind of say anyone. Yeah, you're probably going to bend over backwards to defend the person who's on your team.
Right.
Certainly. But let's say that I was a really right-leaning guy, like that I was more conservative or more Republican. Like, okay, maybe that's who I don't know, maybe that's who I would vote for whatever reason, but at the end of the day, I would call him a lot of things, but a Christian would not be one of them. Like,
not a true Christian, no.
Yeah.
Someone who says they're a Christian, yes. But when you have these right-wing, right-leaning groups that are removing their endorsement or endorsing Hillary, like Glenn Beck.
When Glenn Beck
there
is one of the biggest voices of reason.
That's very damning on Trump. Because Glenn Beck has made some very valid points in the past, but he has very much been vitriolic in some of his views too. So when you have an individual like Glenn Beck, who under any other normal circumstances would never do this, when he's faced with voting for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, he chooses Hillary Clinton. I think that should give everyone pause as to what type of candidate the Republican has put forth. So I mean, yeah. Now, having said that, there were a lot of nice people in this sermon.
In the movie in the
both.
Yeah.
But as far as the people he invited as his friends, it seemed like they were very sensible people who were concerned about their families first and foremost, more so than anything else. They weren't, well, and one of them even was, I really liked the fact that he came out and said, why are you judging people? We should be the first person not to judge. Everyone should, he said specifically, everyone should be held in higher esteem than me. And that to me was probably the most Christian thing I think I've heard out of anybody in probably since I've grew up learning about religion. It gets so lost in our everyday views, our judgment, everything like that. And I wish that more people who were Christians would go see this just for that little snippet. That, like, 10 minutes.
That certainly. But, I mean, there's parts of it, though, that...
It's over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like any Christian sermon. There is the doom and gloom of this country is heading...
This country's on life support. There's a lot of, like, medical analogies in this. And whenever... this is the kind of thing, though, whenever they would have a point like that, like you just said, that the person said in the movie, which is certainly a great point and a great thing to say, later on it would be followed up with, what do we do about all these godless people wanting to destroy our country?
It's ruined by Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Because he can say something like that, but in your head it's like, I've seen what you've said about the gays, man. Like,
right.
I really
and the thing is, I really believe that the people he invited probably practice what they preach. He does not. He believes in God. He is not what I would call a Christian, because he does not put all people into his heart. As like he says one thing for the cameras, then completely reverses course, like you said.
Yeah, and then
being judgmental on other people.
Yeah, it'll turn into this really big, like, persecution complex that a lot of modern day movies, like, when it's like a movie, less like a sermon like this, but like it goes into this persecution complex where he says everyone's picking on him, people are telling him to shut up. He's like, they're telling me to sit down, shut up.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, dude. And then later on, he shows all the movie theaters this is playing in. This is playing nationwide.
And he was showing it, and it wasn't a small, like, oh, here's a little. It was all over. The map was lit up. It's
playing nationwide. There are multiple Christian television networks. There is practically like a Christian news network. Or at least Kirk Cameron Christian, but...
Christianity has never... died out, and it never will die out. It is too ingrained into culture, into public consciousness to ever go away, because like most people, we question We have no idea what's going on. Religion is as a gateway to the unknown. It's one way of being able to say, well, I don't know, but I believe this. It makes me feel better knowing that this is a possible outcome. So as long as people are in doubt, there will always be Christianity. It's never going to go away. And nobody hates... I mean, well... People hate. There are people that hate Christianity.
Oh, there certainly are. Yeah.
But as far as everyday people walking out, being persecuted for that faith, you don't see it like they say it is.
No,
they want to make it seem like it's this big, huge thing. Like they're getting yelled at and screamed at.
Like they want to paint stuff like this. Kind of tries painting things in a way that like people who aren't Christian are like the stereotypical angry internet atheist commenter,
right,
or something like that. And not much in real life have I seen really a lot of things like that, like online certainly, but that's not a reflection of a lot of things that go on in the world.
No, if you're having to search the internet for things, you've reached a point. Well, that's somebody else commented during this thing that the internet go on the internet, it's all doom, it's all gloom. I'm like, you're in the wrong parts of the internet. The internet is wonderful. The internet is fun, and yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff on the internet.
There
terrible
is.
Stuff. But there is so much incredible things. There are many incredible things on the internet that it's to just say, oh, I get doom and gloom. It's like, then you're looking in the wrong places. You're specifically searching out the doom and gloom and disregarding all of the good, because the good is there. You don't have to sit there and dig for it. It's there, and if you want it, it's there. Just like anything else.
And if it's somebody who doesn't agree with you, like, you don't have to say, like, why is this godless person destroying our country?
Right.
There is some funny stuff that goes on in here. There is. Like, there is a pretty solid part of the film where the blind lady gets up and speaks. Like, that was good. It was about 10 minutes, and yeah, there's certainly some inspiring stuff there. It was sort of taken out of it a couple of times, where at one point it appears to pan over to Ben Carson, who looks like he's sleeping. It looked like he straight up fell asleep.
I'm sure he was praying or, going, okay, yes. But yeah, it looked like he had fallen asleep.
Ben Carson's a very sleepy person. and then it does this over-the-shoulder shot quite a bit when she's talking, in which you see Kirk Cameron front and center sitting there watching this with these really crazy looks on his faces. It several times in it looked like he was just straight up staring at her chest. I don't think he was. I think it was just like the way that the camera angle was, or maybe where she was standing or something like that, but it was so bizarre. Or the one guy who gets up and speaks, and way too many times does he use the phrase, God put his seed in me.
Yeah, that was a little... I understand what you're going for, but maybe phrase it in a little bit of different way.
They're not expecting a couple 30-year-olds are going to be in the audience who grew up on Beavis and Butthead.
Right, yeah.
Are going to be giggling like crazy on that. And Ben Carson does later on... The way that this movie deals with politics a lot of the times is that it can sort of, without saying any names, it can sort of reflect whatever way you're going to lean in terms of the election. So when Ben Carson is asked the question, what do I do about choosing between the lesser of two evils? As a Christian, should I just stay home? And at first, he has a pretty okay answer to this. He says, well, look, this is a choice that we have to make for our country. Like, yeah, like a paper cut sucks. Nobody likes getting a paper cut. It hurts. And so does getting both of your legs chopped off. But no one is going to say, well, why choose the lesser of two evils? I could go either way on that. They're going to choose the paper cut. That's a good point. That's also a way of answering that without naming names, but also in a way that can really kind of reflect whoever you're voting for in this election.
Oh yeah, it's very ambiguous as to if you believe that one of these candidates is the paper cut and the other one is the double amputation.
Yeah.
You can fit it into either narrative, and
I mean, it's Ben Carson, so of course it started getting crazy after a while when he gets off on a tangent about education and is talking about why so many young people hate the country because they're taught about slavery in Japanese internment camps. So that's all they think America is. Like, evil, what, like, dude?
The evil flag, and I'm like, no, I don't think anybody gets a revised American history. But do you want us to really teach these kids that this stuff didn't happen in this country?
Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it?
Right. This is some amazing, it just... These things happened. Mm-hmm. America is a great country that has a bloody past. Like I've said this in the past, every country has times in their history that they're not proud of. We've had just as many as anybody else, probably some more. We're new, we're growing. We are a relatively young country.
I was at Birth of a Nation a couple weeks ago. Turns out 1800s was rough. I like that you got the game on.
Yeah, I'm watching the game. But, so, we should take the bad with the good and learn from that and become better. Not say, oh, it's evil because they learned. No.
Dude, yeah. Stuff needs to stay in the history books, man. I think he was trying to think that, I think he was trying to, say, the Colin Kaepernick thought... I'm not sure that was about Japanese internment camps.
Evil, yeah, it was definitely trying to, show people disrespecting the flag. It was definite jab at current events.
Dude, we got, okay, there's several times in this where they ask you to stand up because either a song starts playing or at the beginning, at the beginning
Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, and we're both we're at a movie. We're not at, school.
Right.
So it was during one of the songs, and you and I are just still sitting there watching this, and you didn't see it, but I did. The old guy who was pretty close to you, gave us the dirtiest look.
Really?
Just turned around and we're just spitting on the American flag.
Okay.
I'm all right, old timer, all right.
Like I told you, had the national anthem been played...
Yeah, totally.
I stand up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't necessarily... I agree with I like the national anthem. I feel it's a unifying force. I've always kind of had a problem with the Pledge of Allegiance. I really have. As most people probably should, it's a way of indoctrination when you're a child. Instead of, again, they keep talking about letting these people decide, letting them choose their own path. When one of the first things you do as a young child is recite this thing that you don't even really understand at the time you're reciting it. Because you do this, obviously people who do not come from the United States don't understand this. I'm sure they probably, do they still do it? I don't know if they even still do it anymore. I'm sure they probably do. The Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, in schools? Mm-hmm. They did when I was in school.
Oh yeah, they did when I was too.
I grew up going to Christian schools though, so we had both. We had the pledge of allegiance to the flag and also to the Christian flag as well.
I didn't even know there was a Christian flag, to be honest with you. But I do take an issue with indoctrinating youth. Not to say that it's a bad thing to have pride in your country. If you want that, you should. I have pride in my country. I also have, bad points where I just maybe we weren't that great. But I still love my country. I will always love my country. It has given me so much and ask for very little in return. And, but you're asking these kids to recite this thing And kindergarten kids do not, and like kindergarten, first grade, it's just something that's recited. They don't understand this. In so much like a naturalized citizen or people who take citizenship tests, that I can understand. They worked their ass off.
Yeah.
They want to be part of this country. I can understand reciting that pledge. It's just like a baptism. There's certain religions where you're just automatically baptized. And there's other religions where you get the choice. Mm-hmm. And I respect that choice. Everyone should be free to choose how they represent their country, how they view their country. And while I think Colin Kaepernick is kind of stupid for continuing this, I understand why he's doing it, and I'm not going to sit there and tell him to stand up and be respectful, because he's being respectful in his own way. Mm-hmm. Granted, he has virtually nothing in comparison with a lot of the people that he's trying to protest for. He's just in a position where he has that power to do so.
He has the right to do it, too.
And he has the right to do it.
He has the right to do it, whether or not I agree with it or not. It doesn't matter. He's got the right to do it.
So to sit there and say he's un-American or less American than me is hogwash.
Yeah.
He is just as grateful to this country.
He's practicing his right as an American to do that. You can disagree with it, but...
And I think he understands just as much as any of the rest of us how much his country has provided for him and his ability to do these things. Well, and after you're talking about the old guy that was giving us looks, afterwards, I guess he was probably his wife came up and said, "I noticed you two were not standing." And they were like, "Well, I love that we live." She said, "I love that we live in a country where this is all possible," but made it come across as she was personally disrespected. And it made me wonder, how did my viewpoint make you less American? Did my viewpoint alter your view on your love for your country? Because I can guarantee you I love this country just as much as you do. I have not gone through the hardships that you have and probably never will. But that doesn't mean that I cannot understand those viewpoints. And to say that I disrespected you by inaction, I don't even want to say disrespectful to me, but it goes against the fundamental tenets of this country. They want to, because they want to be like, oh, this is based on religion, this is based on that. It's like, this is based on freedom. Religious freedom is just one of those many things. And
I missed that conversation that you two were having.
You were still talking, and it wasn't like she wasn't mad, she wasn't mean, she was just, and I was fine with it. I don't have a problem with her voicing that opinion. I just question the reasonings behind it, especially with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then standing for something that was not American. Christianity, singing songs, singing hymns. If I don't choose to stand for that, that doesn't make me un-American. I can understand the pledge. Maybe I can understand a little bit, but I voiced my viewpoint on this already. But if you're gonna get mad at me because I'm watching a screen and not standing and singing with you.
It's like getting mad at us for not clapping,
right?
Which happened after every. It was like
everything.
They thought the people there could hear us, clapping after and talking to the people on the screen. Like it was like give them some wine and bread to throw at the screen. It'll be like religious Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It wasn't like we weren't heckling them.
No, not at all.
We just watched.
Yeah, we were just watching the movie. We weren't sitting there like.
Yeah, exactly. I will say this: there was some moments of unintentional laughter because some of the stuff was a little over the top.
There were, and speaking of, I really need to. I got to talk about my favorite part in this. it's still something that I cannot believe this actually happened. Okay, so towards the end of this film, actually this is the climax. The end of this film, Kirk Cameron says, he says, we need to turn us into a bunch of prayer warriors. Now that phrase is really, really familiar to me because of a movie I saw last year. So I'm like, oh, well, now I know what movie Kirk Cameron saw recently, I guess. But then he actually says, I am not making any of this. This happens in the movie. Kirk Cameron says, have you all seen the movie War Room? And because the people in our audience, too, were like, ooh, yeah. I thought all you people looked familiar. Dave's not here this time. So he's like, do you remember sassy old Miss Clara? And I'm like, where is this going? Like, I was serious. Like, my jaw was dropped at this point. I'm like, is Miss Clara seriously going to come out here on stage? And she does. The actress, not as herself, but with the wig, the glasses, the sweater, the rocking chair, comes walking right on stage, and I'm fiddling in my hoodie like, where's my fucking camera? Where's my fucking camera? I've got to get a picture of this. Like, I covertly get like a picture of this. I'm like, this. So in the continuity of this live event we're watching, War Room is not only a movie but also apparently a true story, right? And it's a documentary. So Miss Clara recites her prayer, her war prayer at the end of the movie. Word for word, she does it again. She just totally reenacts the last scene. In my head, I'm like, oh, aren't you going to talk about the scene where, like, God gave the cheating husband food poisoning? You haven't seen... I leaned over to you. I was like, have you seen this movie? That happens... Oh, dude, you missed out on War Room, man. That movie was insane. That's where the wife...
Did they pray for the husband to get food poisoning?
Yeah, well,
or did they pray for some sort of intervention and God works in mysterious ways?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, because, like,
terrible.
the wife is like, she and her husband are fighting, and the wife's like, I just don't know how to submit to him. That's a line from the movie. And so anyway, she finds out from the nice old lady next door that she could turn her closet into a war room, which is a prayer room where they do battle prayers like the one she was doing in this. So
that was some Southern Baptist stuff right there.
Oh yeah, so
whole praise the Lord, praise the Jesus.
Dude, that's the climax of this movie. So like, so the wife makes her own war room in the closet, and her husband's out on a date with another woman, and she's like, "Stop him from his evil ways, Lord!" And then he gets food poisoning, and then she starts walking around the house, going like, "I cast you out, devil! You can't have my man." It kind of was like watching a Medea movie if Medea was played by an older black woman, but still in old lady makeup. So not only are they reciting the end of War Room in this movie, it starts showing footage of it, because when she's doing that battle prayer at the end of War Room, it's showing the same thing, like the guy with his baby in Washington and the baseball team. The funniest thing about this, though, is that her speech went longer than the music, so the music died out after a while, and so it was just her silently yelling.
Yeah, I was wondering why it was kind of got weird all of a sudden. I didn't even really realize that the
oh my god, that happens in this. I was like, I can't believe this is... I'm like, what next? Is Clay Walsh from Old Fashioned gonna come walking out and teach the audience how to cut up baby food?
They didn't have enough time. He was on the docket.
It was great, though, when Kirk Cameron comes walking back out, and Kirk Cameron, he starts talking to the camera again, and then in the background, you can just see Miss Clara walking away. Oh, there she goes. Bye.
Out of character now. Just kind of just normally walking, because she comes up on stage walking like she's having some issues getting up. And then, it was...
I couldn't believe that was happening. It's like, are we going to bring back, like, Kevin Sorbo from God's Not Dead and run him over with a car again? Take that, you godless heathens. Oh, you never seen God's Not... Oh, I just spoiled that movie for you.
He gets hit by a car?
Yeah.
Was that supposed to be like his way of like, I'm going to overcome the devil because he just hit me with a card?
He's the angry atheist professor in that, and then at the end he has his come to Jesus moment, so he's rushing to go like find his estranged wife, and like a car just comes out of nowhere and hits him. And then but the pastor saw him get hit, so the pastor in the movie gets out and saves him, so he's able to go to heaven at the end. I just totally spoiled this movie for you. See what you miss out on?
You do to atheists? You kill them and 11th hour redeem them?
That is the tip of the iceberg.
And you wonder why people scratch their head. Really?
That's what's so funny about, that's what I mean. That's what's so funny about seeing, Kirk Cameron do something like this. Meanwhile, 15 minutes later, he's doing his persecution complex and saying, oh, the godless heathens tearing our country apart and all this shit. Dude, fucking, I don't really get mad at Kirk Cameron, because, okay, let's compare Kirk Cameron to Dinesh D'Souza. Kirk Cameron is more like the eccentric 12-year-old you just kind of want to pat on the head. He's not boring in the same way that, I don't know, a 12-year-old who tries pulling quantum physics out of his ass is, maybe entertaining. Dinesh D'Souza is, the punchable relative no one talks to who likes to equate consensual sex with slave rape. Fuck this dude.
Yeah, Dinesh is, yeah.
Kirk Cameron's also a better actor than Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah.
Dinesh D'Souza plays himself.
I love Growing Pains, so I gotta give him a little bit of a pass, even if he's gone a little off the deep end. But
a little.
Hey, I'm being generous. Because, at least in this...
If you didn't know anything about him other than this,
he seemed like a genuinely good person who was concerned about Christianity and wanted everybody to come together as a whole, as one group.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the people he had, actually all the people he had talking were very nice, very articulate, very passionate without being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you could sit there and go, this is nice.
This movie speaks to this audience.
Yes, exactly.
It does. It absolutely does, and the audience spoke back too. I left this really not... Well, at no point in this was I ever, mad or frustrated.
Oh, no.
There was things that was being talked about that I certainly disagreed with and that I had issues with. I could say that about Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas. I was not mad at that movie. I was enjoying every second of that film.
Yeah, no, this didn't make me mad like America made me mad.
Like what made you mad? Hillary's America.
That made me mad on a fundamental level on
how
wrong he was.
That was more dude, this is the kind of propaganda that gets people killed.
Yeah,
exactly. Can we not do this, please?
Yeah. This was a church night. A family church night is what it was.
It was in the movie theater, which made it was surreal putting that environment in a movie theater. I said earlier, this is one of the most surreal movie-going experiences I've ever had, which is true, because it was... But if this was happening and I was in a church, I'd think nothing of it. But being in a movie theater where they're reacting to the screen as if, they can hear them.
It's not like the Rocky Horror Picture Show where it's encouraged because that's the eccentricities of Rocky Horror. It was, yeah.
I also left not wanting to pick on this movie too much because there was a really nice couple.
Oh, a wonderful.
A really wonderful, nice couple that came up and talked to us after the movie.
So if you're watching this, Wayne and Pat, thank you for the conversation. You're very wonderful people. And I hope that more people who are kind of wavered in their faith come back to their faith like you two, because you were a very wonderful couple. You're very articulate, you're very passionate, but you're not pushy. You guys were very wonderful to talk to about religion, and you don't normally get conversations like that in religion. A lot of times it becomes very heated. this was a very nice conversation, and
yeah, I mean, you were talking a lot more than I was, because there's a lot of things that, like, in a situation like that that I can be kind of a person of few words about, like, only in that, like, I just kind of don't get into a lot of my own beliefs sometimes, but I was still answering stuff they were asking me. Right. I wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to talk about that.
Right.
Like, no, it was pleasant all around. There was a couple of times where I was like, I don't know what to say, like, because they asked us what we were doing here, and I was honest. I said we go see all the movies that come out, and we talk about them online afterwards, which then led them to ask where these videos are posted, and I'm like, you're not gonna like it. They did ask me if I was a pornographer at one point.
But you're not.
No.
You've done reviews on some of those movies before, but you're not, yeah.
Technically, I did direct one in 2004 when I lived in Long Beach. That's a different story. I didn't tell him that part.
Ooh, I don't think I even knew about that.
Yeah, it's actually a really lame story. Like, I'll mention it in like a vlog one time. It's not as exciting as you'd think it would be. They were like, what website are you on? I was like, well, I don't know what in my head, I'm like, I don't know what we're going to say about this movie when we get in the car. So, like, I'm being really diplomatic about it now in this conversation, but I'm sure we're going to be talking about a lot of the outlandish moments in this. So, I was like, I gave him Channel Awesome. Because I was like, I was like, Channel Awesome, the video will be posted much later on Channel Awesome. By the time it's on Channel Awesome, like, they might have just forgotten that we exist. As opposed to if I gave them, like, my site, and they'd check it, like, tomorrow, in which this video would be up.
So, and if you guys end up watching this, I know you won't, but please don't be judgmental on us, because this is what we do, and you were very, very wonderful people, and I hope more people that we encounter in the future, Christianity-wise, are more like you, because it seems like you two really follow the Christian tenets very well. It seemed like, anyway. I mean, I don't, obviously, just having one conversation with you clearly doesn't reveal a lot, but from the conversation, it seemed like you were very non-judgmental, but you've had mistakes like everybody else, and those are the type of people that make Christianity what it is, not this fundamental Kirk Cameron.
It was the nicest people I've ever met at a screening like this. Well, basically what this did was it left 10 minutes of running time open towards the end so people in the audience could talk to each other, and we got up like, yeah, okay, we're just probably gonna head out, use the restroom, and do the video. Right. And a couple came up to us like, it's nice to see young people here, or something like that. I kind of started panicking in my head a little bit after that. I'm like, man, I don't know where this is gonna go. I hope they don't ask us specifics. But I honestly, I felt a little sorry for the ushers who just wanted people to leave so they could clean the theater. Right. Look, as far as something like this goes, like, yeah, there's moments of, like, inspiration you could pull out of it if you are a person of faith. Hell, even if you're not, there's probably some stuff in it that maybe you could identify with. It's mixed in with a lot of persecution complex stuff, politics, without being totally specific, but
being very ambiguous.
Yeah. It gets into a little, like, there were times where I was like, could we not do the whole theocracy thing, please? Like, plenty of history books can talk about that. Let's not do that. But it mixed in with it every now and then. There was something in it that was fine. That was totally fine. That was honest. That it could honestly be better than anything you would find in any minute of, like, God's Not Dead,
right?
Or War Room, or Old Fashioned. My God. But look, if you want to go to see, if you're going to this thinking it's going to be like Saving Christmas, it's not really. Like, yeah, there's things that we've joked about in here and have talked about, but if you want, like, that really outlandish, like, so bad it's amazing Kirk Cameron, like, there's plenty of stuff you can choose from. You got Saving Christmas. This was just like a theatrically shown sermon. Like,
Yeah,
we just sat through a church sermon.
This is not Kirk Cameron, the Christian actor. This is Kirk Cameron, husband, father, Christian. Mm-hmm. And his viewpoints based on that. So it definitely doesn't get to the levels of absurdity that Saving Christmas does.
If something like this reflects your religion or your ideology or anything, then you could get something out of this way more than I could. You probably don't need me to tell you that, honestly. So that's the only person I could possibly recommend something like this to. I mean, it does get a little towards the end where it was like, don't forget to tell your friends so they can come see us next week.
Again,
all right, you just want to sell some tickets here.
Yeah, it was a little cash grabby.
But honestly, if you think you could get something out of any of the speakers here, I'm sure you could probably pull up a number of YouTube videos that show them, like the blind lady. Probably.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. So, it wasn't for me, obviously. It's certainly not made for me, and there's some pretty far out moments in it, but it was easier to sit through than Hillary's America.
Yeah. Yeah, you what do you mean? You didn't even sit through it.
That's what I mean. I sat through this. That's exactly. I sat through all of this. I made it an hour into Hillary's America.
This was a breeze to sit through compared to Hillary's America.
Lord, yes. Oh my God. Fuck.
So, but yeah, no, this is going to be one of those movies. If you're trying to get some sort of laugh out of it, you're not going to have that like you had with Saving Christmas, where you just
not
that
to that
really
extent.
Happened.
There's stuff in this movie that
unintentionally funny stuff, but not to the point where you're just like, oh, this is really I can make fun of Saving Christmas. I'm not gonna make fun of this because it was.
There were some things that we joked about with this, like the Miss Clara stuff. And
that was ridiculous, but not to I can understand it a little in context of where they're trying to go with it, even if it was over the top. Because at the end of the day, there was a lot. I mean, it was still a bunch of people coming together who were concerned about the country and concerned about their kids. You know, these are good people fundamentally. I don't think any of them are. The people who went to go see this are not the people. The far right who espouse racial hate and things of that nature and use Christianity as the fallback. These are very. I feel like these people were much more centrist, and they believe in their faith. They take comfort in their faith, and ultimately, I would never begrudge anyone for that.
No, to each their own.
Exactly.
I mean, I totally agree. And if you're really not the audience for this, then you'll probably feel really awkward sitting in the audience for this.
It was definitely.
It was awkward.
It was not. It was definitely awkward with watching, and we were. I believe we were the only ones who weren't standing
or raising our hand. They ask you to raise your hands. The entire audience does, and we're like, "Wow, we are not the audience for this."
Even when I went to church and everything like that, I never got to the raise my hand thing. I was always very subdued with my faith. So even to me, even if I had was still going to church, that would still be something that I wouldn't do. And I wouldn't purposely go to a church where that was kind of the thing. I would go to a much more subdued church. Having
they don't let you in the black churches anymore.
What are you talking? The black community loves you. I am a spokesperson for the black community.
That's what I've been saying for years.
No, but ultimately, even a person who is not over religious can get some of the maybe not so faith-based tenets, like be good to each other. You know, that's Bill and Ted, man.
Be excellent,
to each other.
Party on, dudes.
And I feel like Christianity has kind of taken it upon itself to be like, that's our thing, when it's really a human thing.
No, yeah, exactly, because they do the thing in this movie that I've seen in God's Not Dead also did this, where they say, like, because we're Christians, we know the difference between good and evil. Like,
right.
No, dude, no. Being a good person means you know the difference between good and evil. Being a human being means you know the difference between good and evil.
For a lot of people, being Christian means I'm doing this because I believe if I don't, I'm going to hell, which is not a very good basis. Which they brought that up with the religion, as far as don't do this because you think it's going to get you to heaven. Do this because you believe it, because you want to do this. You know, you can't be good just to be good to not go to hell and have that work. You have to be, regardless of religions, you have to be a fundamentally good person in order to fully practice. You can't just like fake being good, because it doesn't work. It turns you into a cynic, and it just becomes
a sociopath.
Or so it just, the one thing I could take out of this is we just need to start being a lot better to each other, and that's not something that has been. Well, now.
Maybe I shouldn't.
Well, now we're never.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Done. That was bad. But ultimately,
anyway.
We just need to be good to each other, and there's a lot of.
You don't need a movie like this to tell you that. Though.
Exactly.
You don't need a movie like this to tell you that, because while it does that, periodically throughout the film, you got to sit through some pretty outlandish shit in between that.
Right.
But that your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, just be good to each other. Of course, you don't need this movie to go, and don't go in seeing it if you want to laugh, because it's not that type of Christian gathering movie. It's
not thoroughly. I mean, there'll be parts, but honestly, if it's a packed theater, you'll probably feel very awkward in there.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe try watching it at home if you're a Kirk Cameron completist for whatever reason. For whatever reason.
Oh, man.
Let's see. Coming up, there's a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. It's like Jack Reacher, Ouija, Keeping Up with the Joneses, Medea Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween is coming out.
That poster made me happy then sad all at once when I realized it wasn't the re-release of
Yeah.
I was like, why would you do this to me? You have broken away a piece of my soul when you did this with your cheap theatrics, Medea.
So most of those will probably get seen at some point.
Right.
See it.
Adios.